Well, and this is what we know, guys, is that what you're hearing is medicine being agenda-based versus being what's really happening in the body, and somebody taking the necessary time to analyze the watch as a whole.
Yes.
And there's an old saying that says, what part of the watch tells time? And the answer, all of it. Good afternoon, good day, wherever you're tuning in on the Dr. Wellness. The Dr. Wellness?
You are Dr. Wellness.
Oh my gosh. On the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show, we are so thrilled that you are here with us, hanging out with us, learning from us. We are thrilled to bring you data every week, new information every week, because sometimes this is new information to you. And we hope that we bring a new insight, a new angle to health, wellness, and vitality that allows you to think better about your health, to offer you options to be more in control of your health, and to help you see that it's your choice to be all that you can be in health. And I love that. There's a great mentor of mine back in the day named Philip Maffetone that wrote a book called In Fitness and in Health. Do you remember that guy?
Oh, Phil Maffetone.
And it's amazing the things that he would talk about, that people are fit enough to be fit enough to run a marathon, but they're not healthy enough. They're healthy enough to run a marathon, but they're not fit enough. And we've got to find the difference. We want to bring that difference of that wisdom and knowledge and insight for you to understand why your body's breaking down. We call that functional medicine. We call that root cause medicine.
Yes.
And on the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show, I want to help you understand that root cause medicine is where you got to get to so that you can be what we call beyond functional medicine, transformational medicine. And that is where life really gets exciting, because you are empowered, your family's empowered, your generational line's empowered. So thanks for tuning into the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show. And I have a very special guest with me today, and we're going to be talking about a very hot topic called COVID. Well, this special guest friend of mine has been a mentor, a teacher, and just a dear colleague in many ways, shapes, and forms over the last 2 decades for me. And he first started as my teacher, and then he turned into a colleague, and now he's my friend. And I'm very thankful, Dr. Patrick Krupka who is in the house today on the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show.
Thank you.
So thanks for making the trek down. Thanks for being here, and thanks for doing all the things you do. Tell our viewer audience a little bit about you and why you do what you do.
Sure. So I'm a chiropractor that practices functional medicine and nutrition. Call it root cause, call it lifestyle medicine, all the same thing.
I like transformational. You're a transformational guy.
I still like functional. I'm old school.
I know.
But anyway, so well over 20 years I've been doing this.
Cool.
Right. And it's the only kind of medicine like this that I've ever practiced. I was a paramedic before that, worked in emergency rooms and stuff. But I
have a story. I remember he told this story when we were in school, that he had a patient that was diabetic, but he was a malinger. He was teaching this concept of people that fake, ER trips,
mm-hmm.
and that you went and you grabbed his eyelid, pulled it up, and flicked him in the eye.
I'm not sure that's quite how the story went.
That's how I perceived it.
Okay, that I believe.
But okay, fair enough. But what I remember is everybody around him, he said, were shocked that he did what he did. But he said, you can't hide when somebody messes with your eyeballs. Is that accurate? And this guy had been doing this regularly so often, and he was faking a diabetic coma. And well, lo and behold,
you can gently touch their eyeball.
Oh, so it wasn't a complete flick.
It wasn't quite a flick.
So, but it makes the story better.
If someone were to reach over there and try to touch your eye, you have a reaction to that, right?
That's
People
right.
don't like that, and so if you're trying to fake being unconscious and someone pokes you in the eye, it's hard to fake. But if you're actually out, then you can poke them in the eye. They don't care.
Well,
not that I would.
So that's right. Maybe that's what I would have done.
He would.
But you, on the other hand, now have switched out of all that crazy
Yes.
world into this functional world. Like, how did that mindset? Because you went from one extreme to the other, in a sense.
In a sense, but I'll tell you, when I meet legitimate functional medicine doctors that have come over from prescriptive medicine, like they're MDs or DOs, and now they're doing functional medicine and actually doing functional medicine. Like they embrace the whole root cause approach, right? They're not just doing bioidentical hormones and calling it functional medicine, right? But those
you mean people do that?
Yeah. Those people that actually do it well, make that transition well, by and large, they're ER doctors.
Really?
Yes. I can't tell you how many I've met. There's a very good one out of San Antonio. If you ever need the referral, I'll give you his name. But they get it. They understand. They never quite bought into the prescriptive version of long-term chronic care.
Oh.
Right? They were all acute care. You do something that makes a difference, that makes a real difference. Then you hand them off to the person that's going to mistreat this for years. So
I saw what you just did there.
Yeah, it almost went past you. They I think are much more pragmatic about it. And so for whatever reason, it's a simpler transition from ER or from acute care, critical care into functional medicine.
You know, a part of me wonders if a little bit of that is because you've seen the emergency, you've seen the fast pace of like, and need it now. And it's got to be now. Like if my arm gets lumped off, don't come see me. Like I don't have that tool in my tool bag to fix that. However, when it comes to something chronic condition, belly pain for 10 years or migraine headaches or irregularities in cycles or whatever that people bring in, there's this, I'm your guy. Like, you know, we can get in there and till the land, so to speak, and fix the terrain and see adaptation give us a different result.
Yeah. Think of it from like almost from a prepping perspective, right? You can have freeze-dried food at your house that'll last you 6 months. But at some point you got to plant some crops in your backyard to last you 6 years.
There
right.
You go.
So the ER guys, they have the freeze-dried food. Like, come in here, oh my God, I'm starving, no food. Okay, here, eat this.
Yeah.
But then you got to eventually see the guy that says, okay, here's how you turn your backyard into a garden that's going to feed you for the next decade, right? So, that's more what we're doing.
I love that.
Now, if you come into me starving and I say, okay, plant this seed.
It's got to take time.
Something has to intervene in between.
That's right.
And tide you over until the long-term stuff can really kick in. It does. Sometimes you are in that situation.
And I think and that's just like everything. Everything requires a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
And there's people that need to be taught.
Learn ahead of time.
That's right. Prevention. True.
Imagine that.
That's
you know, prevention, I think, is one of the hardest things to sell.
It is. It's a better you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And people can't foresee that they might have a problem tomorrow. But there's an old saying.
Tomorrow when I need to be a better me.
That's right. And I hear that all the time. That's why. So my heart's desire is like to hit I want the men to come in. I want the fathers. My dad died when I was 19.
Do you see a lot of men in your practice?
Oh, no.
Like percentage-wise, men to women? You're heavily weighted female.
Heavyweight. So, and the reason for that is females make 100% of the health of food decisions for the family. They make the health decisions for the family. Which doctor they're going to go see, what's happening.
They do seem to be smarter in that sense.
What's interesting is I say 100% because obviously we might be an outlier. However, in general, the way I see the vision for me, like what really drove me into this is when Dad died, like I wanted to find out why. Yes. Functional root cause. He was a good patient. He did all the things he was told to do, and yet he still died. And so when I went on that quest, I discovered that the diets they were selling, the drugs they were selling, the lifestyle they were selling was garbage, and it was inflammatory, and it wrecked him. And so what I decided is I wanted to go get him. What found out is men don't care. They don't care until their wives make them care. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why the Bible says, he who finds himself a wife finds himself a good thing. All right. So I know you love your bride, and I love mine. I do. And we're very blessed men.
I would not be who and where I am
without her.
No, I would not.
Praise God.
I really wouldn't.
Well, this is good. When she sees this, when she's going to be like, go ahead, tell her you love her.
Yeah, she knows I love her. She's the best.
Well, so, getting into that mindset of like prevention, and there's this mindset. I'm going to set the stage because people are really excited about this, conversation around COVID, around vaccines, and it's
I'm not suicidal.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
I just want to put that on record.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And what's interesting is the world as we know it is still flipped out and freaked out about COVID.
Yes.
It seems like no one can have the common cold. It seems like no one can have a flu. everybody's got what? COVID.
I'm going to say this real quick, kind of as a disclaimer.
I think it's a good thing.
I am going to speak probably more openly with you here than I normally do, even in my practice.
Okay.
So
again, we're in for a treat.
You might get comments.
And you know what? Hey,
sorry,
guys, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And here's the difference. You may come from a place where you are dogmatic about what you believe based on what you've seen. And the same I would think for you and I is we're talking from a place of not opinion, but what our clinical practice has shown us over thousands of care. I mean, do you realize you've been in practice of what, 24 years?
Yeah.
And then the training before that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 10 years as a paramedic before that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is your first rodeo and you're talking, just off, non-clinical research base.
Correct.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, I'm 2 decades in. I've been trained prior to that. I am a first generation chiro, but what I have found is that I only teach what I see. Yeah. And the body has taught me so much. People have taught me so much, bring in cases upon cases. So essentially, from just what we've been doing the last 24 years and 2 decades, we're 44 clinical man-hour years in this training.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time when we've seen a lot of stuff evolve.
And for reference, for the people that don't, our patients know what we do. For the people watching that aren't familiar with us, we end up seeing the cases that don't do well in the regular doctor's office. So we don't see some of the, if you just go to the doctor, he gives you something, you feel great, we're not likely to see you.
That's right.
We see you when that doesn't work and you go looking for help.
And you can't find it.
You dig deep enough to come across us on the internet. And then when you come in, you're paying cash for that.
That's right.
So there are many barriers of entry before people get to us. We see, I don't want to necessarily say the worst of the worst, but we see the people that aren't getting help anywhere else.
That's right. And that is where we're coming from.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to this conversation of, prevention, especially now with all the advertising for, making vaccines readily available, that everybody needs to be COVID shots. Tell us about COVID. Like, how has that really transformed our lives, and how's it going to change us in the future? The
first thing I'll speak about is what you mentioned just a minute ago with the testing. I still have people testing for COVID and calling me up and saying, "Oh my God, we were out of town or on a cruise ship. I came back and I had a sore throat, whatever, and I tested positive for COVID. What do I need to take?" And my first thought is, why'd you test for COVID?
Yeah.
Like at this point, what difference does it make?
That's right.
Right? You're not going to the hospital. You're not getting put on a ventilator.
You're calling me now.
Somehow magically that's all done.
That's right.
Right. So in the old days, 6 years ago, right, when you got sick, you didn't test for stuff.
That's
maybe
crazy.
strep throat, right?
You realize it's
maybe
6 years ago. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like we're talking about, like my son likes to say, back in the 1900s, but it's really just like, I know, right?
You and I can relate.
Yeah, it's really like 5 or 6 years ago that you would get sick, you'd get bronchitis, you'd get a sore throat, you get a sinus infection. You weren't testing for stuff. You just dealt with it. However, whether you were taking over the counter, our stuff, whatever, you just dealt with it. But now everybody feels the need to test. It's like their responsibility to test.
That's right.
That's nothing but programming. It's programming. It makes no difference in how they're treated. If they call me up and say, "Oh my God, I've got COVID. What do I take?" Well, what's going on? What do you feel?
Well, it's fascinating.
Right? Is
20
it the
years ago,
COVID? Is it the throat COVID? Is it the fatigue COVID? The headache COVID? Is the sinus COVID? I don't know.
Well, they talk TV programming, right? Remember
Yes.
Here. Welcome back to our regularly scheduled program, right? That was the old mantra of the day. I remember one of my mentors. I don't remember. I think you knew him, John D'Onofrio, and him and Joe Thomas would talk about that by the time we were 20 years old, we would have had over 20 to 100,000 pharmaceutical ads pumped into our heads by the time we were 20. And so
double that by the time you're 21.
Yeah.
It's exponentially going more and more.
I think now, especially because we're absolutely, this was 20 years ago.
Well, consider what just happened, right? And here we go. When we had COVID and they all of a sudden chose the vaccine was the only way to prevent this, right? Couldn't talk about vitamin D, couldn't talk about eating well, couldn't talk about anything. Vaccine was the only way to prevent it. Remdesivir is the only way to treat it in the hospital. And now I'm drawing a blank on the out of hospital medication, right? When they did that, our government funneled hundreds of billions of dollars, if not bordering on trillions, into the pharmaceutical industry.
Trillions.
Now the pharmaceutical industry will use that money to lobby and pay for more politicians that pass more laws that funnel money to the pharmaceutical industry. As far as I'm concerned, we're done. I don't see how you undo that.
You don't.
Like, we are now living with a constant layer of programming from the pharmaceutical companies. It's going to be in the school curriculum. It's going to be in the office workplace. It's going to be in colleges. It's going to be in it's in medical schools. I mean, they basically run the medical schools. They determine the curriculum for that because they're footing the bill. They pay for the research that keeps that school running.
That's crazy.
And they pay for the campaigns for the politicians that get in office who vote for laws that allow this type of thing to happen. When did we ever have a time before where you and I could not speak publicly and question what the current treatment model is?
You can't.
That is a basic tenet of science, if not just medicine.
That's right.
And we were basically told, don't do it.
Don't do it.
You could lose your license if you do it, which means you lose your house, your family. I mean, like everything unravels.
Yep.
Right. And so that's never happened before. And I'll say something about that again at the end, but the programming is not going away.
Well, not
you
only
need to become skeptical and aware.
There you go.
Because it is not going away.
You have to start asking questions. You have to. We can't lose that. I mean, when we teach our kids, there's a great book, The Power of the Question, and if we don't learn to ask good questions, then we're in trouble. But we are shunned to ask good questions. I feel like a little bit functionally, we're like militia. We're the people that are grassroots again, where we were getting some traction in. Remember when 20 years ago, there was like a 6 foot by 6 foot gluten-free area at the grocery store. And then now there's aisles of it, but now we're weird again if we're gluten-free or dairy-free.
Now we're weird if we eat meat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How dumb is that?
How messed up is our society now?
I know.
And you're absolutely right. So how do we start, other than just here, educating people to ask these good questions and not feel shunned whenever you question the COVID, the vaccine to your doctor?
I wrestle with that. I really do. Because I was not as outspoken as I feel like I should have been during COVID. I did not hide, right?
You mean you still showed up to work without a mask?
And I spoke to all my patients and
without a mask?
Well, yes, I will say there were a few instances where I wore one because a patient asked me to. And so I made a grumbly face behind the mask, but I was polite to my patient, right? There were a couple of times at Costco where they told me to wear a mask. And I thought, for 30 minutes in here, I'll wear a mask. Next time around, I don't think the polite ones of us are going to do that.
That's right.
Right. I really don't. We were nice last time, but I was not as aggressive about my message as I probably should have been.
I lost patience over the mask.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
I mean, because I did.
Most of them have come back, I think, but
yes.
But yeah, they were upset, but I have patients that will come in now and say, I took the shot, or I did this, but we didn't really know what was going on back then, and we did the best we could
with the information you had.
And unfortunately, my answer is no. We pretty much knew what was going on. Mm-hmm. We weren't allowed to talk about it, but we knew. Anybody who understood the basics of immune systems and the basics of vaccine science and the basics of prescriptive medicine knew that was all misguided. I'm being nice.
Misguided.
Malicious. I mean, it was a money grab.
Yeah.
And I have patients that feel like, they purposely put stuff in the shot to depopulate us and all that. I mean, I don't know, but my gut is basically, I don't think they were ready enough to do all that. I think they just slapped something together and didn't care about the quality. And so that's why the shot ended up being so bad. Now, why they chose the spike protein to be what they used. Why would you choose the active piece, the sharp piece of glass? Why would you choose that as the piece of virus you're going to make antibodies to? That made no sense to me. right? I mean, if you're going to choose, if you want to make an antibody to me, so
explain that a little bit so people understand, like, because I think there's a misconception. People don't understand when you bypass your God-given natural buffering system with a needle, you're asking for trouble.
yes, the idea behind vaccines was always
this, yeah. So to kind of differentiate between the old school model of vaccination and then like what COVID vaccination with these shots and how they're different.
So if I was going to make a vaccine to this cup, right? In the old days, I mean, originally, literally you break off a piece of cup and rub it in an open wound, right? And it was crude, but it kind of worked, right? Smallpox kind of stuff. Eventually, there was marketing got involved and they said, I don't want to bring my kid in for you to make him sick. So they said, well, how can we show his body something meaningful so it can build antibodies to this cup and recognize it, but not make him sick? So then they said, well, what if we just take this little black piece off the lid because it's unique to this cup and we'll show that to his immune system. It's not enough to make him sick, but if he makes antibodies to that black piece, maybe he'll be able to attack the cup, right? And so they did that. Problem with that was the antibodies didn't last. It worked well, but 6 months later, the antibodies were gone because they weren't sick when they made the antibodies. The immune system wasn't activated in that way. So then they said, okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to show them this little
black piece,
insignificant piece, right? But unique. But we're going to kick the ant pile of his immune system when we put that in there. That's where the adjuvants came in.
Yeah.
And that's why when people say, well, I want a vaccine that doesn't have thimerosal or mercury or whatever, it won't work. It's an integral part of the vaccine. Now, do I think it should be in there? No, I think it's problematic. Don't misunderstand me. But that's why it needs to be in there. But the idea was if I show you a piece of it, like the rear view mirror on your car, right? Now, if that car shows up anywhere, your immune system will recognize that rear view mirror and go attack the car. Is the rear view mirror the part of the car that hurts anybody? No.
It's useful.
It's a nondescript piece of it, right?
That's right.
So with COVID, they didn't pick some random, earlobe on the virus. They chose the barrel of the gun to be the piece that they injected you with. And then what they did is instead of showing you the piece, they gave you the RNA, the blueprint of it, and said, we're going to hijack an indeterminate number of your cells, different for different people, give them that programming, and turn them into a factory to make that spike protein. And they'll make it until they decide not to make it. And it will go wherever it tends to go. Whoa. And we'll see what happens. And so some people, and honestly, the quality of the shot was all over the place. Some shots had no active material in them. Some probably had 3 or 4 times what they were supposed to have.
Like you said, they just slammed it together.
Every tin shack in Pakistan was pumping this stuff out, right? Because they had to make how many millions of doses in a matter of months?
Yeah.
It's not going to go well.
It's not going to go well.
So
and it didn't go well.
Oh, no, not at all. So there were people that would get a shot. And the idea was, just a few cells in your arm are going to be hijacked and it's just going to stay local and you'll make the antibodies to it. Well, what we very quickly found out is that spike protein migrated to wherever you already had inflammation. So women were having uterine bleeding, heart problems, brain issues. It was all over the place.
That's right.
Now what we're left with is how long do you continue making that?
This probably leads into long haulers.
I would think so, yeah. The general consensus was somewhere between 8 and 12 months, you'll quit producing it. And then the circulatory numbers of it will start to go down and eventually it won't have the inflammatory influence that it had. But everybody, look, a tenet of functional medicine is biochemical individuality. You and I are probably not going to react the same way to the same dose of medication. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's dramatic. Right? You may have an anaphylactic shock and I don't even know I took it. It could go the other way.
That's why you get PTSD in the military. They go down that gauntlet of vaccinations. This person gets Tourette's and tics and is left as a bum on the street.
And if you have
other people that have no idea.
If you have brain inflammation and then you put emotional trauma on top of it, that doesn't go well.
It does not go well.
So basically, they violated every tenet of functional medicine by saying there's one preventative measure for every man, woman, and child on the planet, and it will work the same in every one of them. And there's one treatment for everybody that gets COVID, and it'll work the same for every one of them. right? It's complete BS. We knew it from the beginning. And if you understand how vaccines traditionally have worked, this is not a vaccine, right? Not by the old definition.
Yes,
I mean, you have to change the definition, which they did, if you want this to be a vaccine.
Well, did they? I don't think people know the new definition.
Well, the definition changes depending on where you look, but understand this is something for people that they need to know. Wikipedia
Is not
some all-knowing being that lays the truth out online for us to search. Wikipedia is updated constantly by whoever has an agenda that they want to push, right? And when you ask Alexa, hey, Alexa, is the vaccine good? Alexa goes to Wikipedia and tells you what it says. It's not what you think it is.
Well, but it's interesting
marketing.
because they used to say like a textbook was always 10 years behind schedule, or even further. And so, at least with like a Wikipedia, it's seemingly more
it's updated,
potentially updated, but now it's being updated by
people with an agenda. Marketing, I love saying this. I'm very proud of myself for this. If you love it, let us know. Marketing
in the comments.
Marketing and science got drunk at a bar like maybe about 8 to 10 years ago. Got a little randy, and now we're left with the offspring of that, which is some weird mix of marketing and science. And it is very difficult to see where marketing stops and science starts, or where science stops and marketing starts. And even it's presenting a significant issue for people like you and me. If someone came to you and said, well, what about LDL and the carnivore diet? Is that going to kill me or not? And you go and do a PubMed search for that,
you'll find
you're going to get both sides of this.
Yes.
That very clearly say, I'm right, here's the data. I'm right, here's the data. And they disagree with each other.
Yeah.
We have a hard time telling where marketing stops and science starts. And we're schooled
Educated.
in this. We're supposed to know how to do that. Do you think the anchor person on TV takes that time? No. They read what they're told to read. I know a couple through various means, and they've been very honest with me that there are times, most of them now write their own copy. What they're reading is what they wrote, right? They were told what to say. They wrote it so that it's in their words and it's easy for them to read on the teleprompter. But a while back, some news director or something was writing it and they were just reading it. Now,
whatever it said.
The better ones would go in and read it ahead of time, make a few edits, make sure it felt comfortable to them. But sometimes when they got good at their job, they would just come in and read it cold and they didn't know what they were reading. And there were times they're reading things and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this is wrong. I can't be reading. Why am I reading this? This is not.
And they're on live TV.
I'm telling them, and they're on live TV.
Wow.
But that's their job.
Yeah.
Their job is not
to be
to
factual,
sift
accurate
through that and decide what the truth is. Their job is to deliver the message to you.
That's right. And I think that therein lies a major challenge is we are a very small grassroots militia of telling people it's your life, your health, your choice. The gut's where it all begins, that toxins are real and that you can control a lot of your own health symptom patterns without flipping out with tests, without flipping out with, some extreme measure, but yet they're being sold billions, almost trillions of dollars worth of marketing to lobby or promote an agenda where our voice is now drowned out so much that how could vitamin C really do what it does? Or how could,
it's not FDA approved for that.
Well, exactly.
You hear that in I hear it less now than I used to.
Yeah.
But I hear it from time to time. Well, is that FDA approved to treat
or
whatever?
Is it safe?
No.
Well, they freak out.
Tell you, that's a badge of if the FDA approved it.
That's right.
Have you ever seen the graphics of the revolving door between pharma and the FDA?
No.
Like where they put the same headshots of people left and right in these columns. And here they worked for big pharma like Pfizer or Moderna, whatever, for years, this one through this one. And then they're the director of the whatever department of the FDA from this year to this year. And then they're back in pharma having a board position from this year to that. They're just back and forth and back and forth. So you go to FDA, you approve what you need to approve, and then you get a cushy board job back at the pharmaceutical company. And when they need you again, they'll hire you at the FDA, approve what you need to, and then you're back to the pharmaceutical company to get your payoff. Military contractors do the same thing. They get generals out of the military when they retire, and they'll put them in a cushy job at one of the defense contractors because they did a good job, keeping everything going when they were in the military. It's insane what we put up with, and the average person has no clue about that kind of stuff. But in medicine, it's dangerous.
So that being said, then how do we as functional medicine providers, and how do patients, people with real lives and real symptoms, manage this type of conversation when they're up against quote unquote agenda-based marketing and make good decisions?
I go back and forth on this, but whether it's, I'm going to decide what to say and not to say here. I would say generally decentralization is probably the best answer for patients. If you were to go to a cardiologist and say, I have high cholesterol, how many different cardiologists could you go to and still get the exact same answer?
Oh, wow.
Probably all of them.
Yeah.
Right? Because the decision process is centralized. You have a lot of outlets, but the decision process, those individual cardiologists are not deciding what to do with your specific cholesterol issue. Those decisions are made up top. It's a protocol, right? It's an algorithm. So I tell patients that the medical community needs to decentralize. That's where practitioners like you and I come in. There is no central governing agency that tells functional medicine doctors what their protocols need to be, because functional medicine says every patient's different, right? Now, the downside of that is, how do we all get together and have a centralized voice if we're practicing in a decentralized manner? If I had to choose, I would prefer to be decentralized and have a lot of individual voices speaking to the people that want to listen.
It's a grassroots effort.
Yes.
And you and I come together on a day that we can get our schedules to match, leverage technology, and have a voice to giving people options.
We can't lobby Congress and make them change the way the Texas Medical Association tells the doctors how to practice. That's impossible.
You don't have $1 billion or $1 trillion in your pocket?
No.
Me neither. Darn it. Well, and that's the truth of it, right?
But we're open to it.
That's right. That's right. Well, and this is what we know, guys, is that what you're hearing is medicine being agenda-based versus being what's really happening in the body, and somebody taking the necessary time to analyze the watch as a whole.
Yes.
And there's an old saying that says, what part of the watch tells time? And the answer, all of it.
Yes.
And your body is that way. So if you just isolate pieces, specialize neurologically, endocrine, cardiovascular, digestive, you are breaking the watch apart and saying, well, this is the watch, the springs or the dials. And that's not how health works.
No.
And the reality is that's why I think you and I have such a hard time niching into one facet of healthcare, because we're helping people with knee pain. We're helping people with vision issues. We're helping people with ringing in the ears. We're helping people with cardiovascular distress. We're helping people with belly pain and digestive problems. I mean, skin issues. I mean, we're listening to the body's cry for help, and then we're asking better questions to solve a medical mystery for the person, and then we're giving them a different answer other than drugs and surgery.
It's a big niche,
and it's a pretty big niche.
All the marketing people tell you that's too big.
And
you should be the toenail fungus guy.
See, this is where, that's right.
But you're like, you can't do that without the gut.
That's right.
Right?
They're connected.
And the marketing people don't get that.
No. They talk about the gut-brain connection.
Yes.
You just built another one. It's called the gut toenail fungus connection.
I do not want to be known as the toenail fungus guy. So maybe I should be careful what I talk about.
Well, I'm going to say, if there was something to this COVID thing that you could kind of wrap it up, like what can a person do when it comes to, if they get sick, get a cold, get strep, get staph, whatever they're dealing with, not to jump to a conclusion that it's always got to be one thing, or be as scared of this COVID word.
Right.
And that there is better options out there. What would you kind of share with people?
First of all, if you were going to run a 100-meter dash in a competition, you would train for that. Right. And the more important the race is, the more you're going to train.
Sure.
So if you feel like COVID or whatever's coming next, right, monkeypox, bird flu, whatever, it doesn't seem like they can decide which one's going to market best. You mean there might be other
pandemics?
Oh yeah, there might be. But I don't think they're all on the same page, right, marketing wise, but they'll coalesce at some point on something, and then we'll get it. But if you want to be ready for that, train for it. Get your vitamin D level up where it needs to be. right? I have patients come in saying, well, I watched this podcast. He said everybody needs to take 10,000 units of vitamin D a day. I don't know what you need to take unless I know what your blood levels are.
That's right.
Right. That's one where a test I think is very valuable.
Sure.
I will say for adults, 5,000 units a day is probably a nice, safe, easy dose that everybody could take without a problem. Is it going to be enough to get you where you need to be? I'm not sure. Is it going to be too much? Yeah, probably not. Right. So I would say that's kind of a safe starting place. But I have patients that need 10 or 15,000 units a day. I have patients that do fine with 5. So anyway, get your vitamin D level up where it needs to be. I say 70 to 90 is probably a good spot. Eat good whole food, get some exercise, get some sleep, wash your hands from time to time. I think that does make some sense, right? People can be kind of grubby, but don't overstress about it. Treat it like you used to treat things. We won't know what to do specifically for the next one until we know what they're sending our way. I will say I am one that says that COVID was real. I think a lot of it was overblown. I think they took advantage of it, but it was an engineered virus that was released.
Yeah.
On purpose or by accident, right? That's debatable, but it was released. We can't necessarily expect it to act like a regular, naturally occurring virus.
Yes.
And I, for a long time, felt like the vaccine was to blame for so much of the stuff that was going on. And at some point, I had to realize I have people that never got the vaccine that are still having some of these
Weird
long-term
symptoms.
issues and weird symptoms. The virus itself was weird.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it behaved the way it should. When I got it, I didn't get over it as quickly as I normally do. It was different.
Well, yeah,
it was different.
I ask the question to patients all the time, like, loss of smell, for example. And I've never had as many people tell me they lost smell until COVID came around.
No, it was legit.
Yeah.
But if you look at the numbers of people that died, I think many of them died from treatment, inappropriate treatment, right? Because I will say in my practice, the monoclonal antibodies that were being used, to me, it was like a safety net. Come to me, I'll work with you. We'll boost your immune system. We'll get inflammation under control. We'll do all the things we do. If for some reason we don't get it early enough, you can always go get the monoclonal antibodies. They worked like a charm. 24 hours, 48 hours, these people were brand new people, right? They pulled them off the market.
Interesting.
They pulled them off the market when they approved remdesivir and said, no, that's the only treatment.
That's right.
Or Paxlovid or whatever it was that they did, outside the hospital. I can't even imagine how many thousands of people they killed by stopping the monoclonal antibodies and sending people into the hospital for
Which is sad.
That right there
should burn.
Killed thousands and thousands of people.
Well, and I think that if we would stop and hear a message like that and go, I wonder, is it possible? And just ask the question like we started. Like, ask better questions. Is things like that possible? And is there a bioengineering that's happening in science, whether intentional or accidental, that can get released? I mean, we're playing with fire.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
They're still doing it.
And here's the reality is, like you said a moment ago, and like we started with in fitness and in health, it's if you choose to play in the wellness game, start today. When's the best time to build an oak tree or to plant an oak tree?
Yesterday.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
But when's the next best time? Today. So if you want to be the best version of you need an immune system, an immune alliance to function well so that you outperform whatever they get, whatever they throw at you, whatever we're dealing with, it's natural or manufactured. And so when we get the next, big issue that comes down our way, your body will be ready to navigate the terrain. And when you are taking the bull by the horns and you're saying, yes, I choose health. I choose to make healthy choices, whether it's food, lifestyle, better sleep, better love of myself and love of my people that I'm surrounding myself with. You will then start seeing your body perform differently whenever you're exposed to stuff. And I want people to see that a message like this isn't to create our own propaganda. It's just to educate. Like, we have a better tool. We have a bunch of tools, and we got to leverage structural exercise, sleep, better diet, recognizing toxins are real, helping people, see that what they eat's important, but what they don't eat's more important. And it's a big task.
I would say one last thing. Decide who you're going to get your information from soon and gain access to those people. Get on their email list, follow their podcast, whatever that is, right? Because at some point, like, the podcast is going to go away. potentially at some point, right? And so you need to be on their email list.
That's right.
So you can still get information from whatever source you deem
Necessary.
helpful to you at this point. And then the last thing is, if we lose the ability to talk about this,
we're in real big
we
trouble.
lose everything. And I'm not going to tell you what to do and which way to go. But rather than getting caught up in some of the miscellaneous hot button issues of the day, we need to make sure that we maintain our First Amendment rights.
Woo-wee.
And that we can continue to have dialogues like these more openly than we could during COVID.
Yep.
Because if we lose that, we lose everything.
Guys, y'all just heard a powerful message, and I hope that you share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. Pat, how can we get a hold of you?
So you can just go to drkrupka.com, drkrupka.com. That's my website. And on almost all social media, I'm just Dr. Krupka. YouTube's Dr. Patrick Krupka, but everything else is just Dr. Krupka.
Perfect. Guys, Dr. Pat and I have been blessed to be a part of your life today. We hope that you take this information, you pray about it, you think about it, that you do get access to what we're teaching and bringing to people so that you can live better, your family can live better. And on the Dr. Chapa Wellness Show, we are excited that we still have a First Amendment right, that we still have the ability to talk shop and to serve you guys, not just in our clinics, one-on-one, but now we can come to you in the mass. So help us, spread the message of health and wellness and make good choices for you and your family. And if you need help, we're here to serve you and help you live the best version of yourself each and every day. So God bless you. I hope that you guys are wonderfully blessed in all that you do, and we'll see you on the next podcast.